someone may die while you're sitting in jail being incarcerated for something you didn't do.
Yes.
No, it's a harsh thing, no question. But as you do know, there is latitude there, and very often investigators are dealing with people who may well have done terrible things, and they're trying to use whatever leverage they can. But let me ask you something, Christy. So you get word from the federal government that is basically you and your word and your wits against theirs. How do you get into that kind of challenge? I mean, you were up against some significant odds here.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to tell you that I don't get scared and that it wasn't a little bit scary, but I have been doing this a long time, almost 2 decades, and I've been in nothing of national significance, but I have been up against our federal government on more than one occasion. It is a frightening thought that the resources they have compared to the resources I have, but to be just perfectly honest, I am such a strong and faithful believer in the bedrock of this country, in the Constitution, that, I mean, as imperfect as our justice system can be, I put my eye on that Constitution and I stamp my feet in my red shoes or whatever shoes I'm wearing, and I just hold fast, and I just don't let anything scare me in that way. I feel like I have that on my side. I'm good.
She's the Lion King in the courtroom. I've been in and out of court over 24 times in 13 years, and I've never seen anything like this. And she came in one day before, and I mean, I've had attorneys 2-3 years into litigation that walk in and go, nah, continuance for 7-8 years, and then they go, we got to drop this. And there was never that with Christy. She just took it, ran with it head on, and I think she scared everyone in there to death, and they were just like, she tripped everyone up under cross-examination. Don't be bashful. No, just let it out. Let it be known. If you need the mega representation, this is the person. Your phone will probably be ringing for the next 40 years off the hook, because it was just unbelievable. I've seen a lot. It was Perry Mason on crack. Is what it was.
Thank you.
That's a great description. Mr. Curtis, let me ask you, that's just how you want to be known, Christy. But let me ask you this, Mr. Curtis. Given the intensity of the allegations and the energy being focused at you, did you think that you were not going to get out of this situation no matter what you believe to be true?
Well, I've told my family over the last couple of years, and I always say they. I never say police, FBI, CIA. But whenever speaking of all the research I've done in bone tissue and organ harvesting, which has ruffled a lot of feathers in Washington and China and different places where there is a black market for bone tissue and organ and body part marketing, sure, I've made enemies, sending emails asking, please pass my House Resolution 6631 to regulate bone tissue and organ harvesting so people will stop dying, cancerous material will stop being placed into healthy people, and they will get diseases by tainted tissue. So that's been my goal for years. So when I began trying to push that through Congress, strange things started happening, and I became a person of interest, if you will. And this has restored my faith, actually, in our justice system. I had lost all faith, but I've been telling my kids for years, I'm going to walk out this door. I've got to go here. I love you all. God's in control when it's my time to go, because they would always say, Dad, you've had death threats. Are you scared? And, well, sure, if you're uncertain if you're going to walk out of a door, there's cars running you off the road, your home's burning down, your dog's having their throat sliced.
Well, Mr. Curtis.
So many things are happening. It's very scary.
All of this outside intrigue, we'll kind of leave to the outside for a second just to focus on this specific situation here that's gotten national attention. The arrest, very public, the embarrassment public, somewhat part of the process. Given that, how did they explain to you that you were going to be released? And what did they say to you when they were releasing you at that time initially? What did they tell you?
No one in the system told me anything regarding being released. All I got on the inside was, man, you're in trouble. Man, you tried to kill the president. When I got to Christie on the day it was dismissed, I walked up to a screen window, and she just put her hand up to it. When she did that, I just knew it looked good. And she said, just hold on. We don't have all the information. There's been a turn of events, and looks like we're going to get you out of here today, and this will be dismissed. And that's when I just felt this train lifted off my shoulders. That was the first moment after 7 days of sitting in a tiny cell looking at the bars that I thought, oh my gosh, I'm not going to prison for life. They haven't conjured up all of this information from my internet activity and my activism work and said, got to be the guy. This is Casey, and I approve this message. Has to be the one done it. So, that's the moment I found out, and that was yesterday.
What is today? Yes, that was Tuesday.
She's like,
yes,
I haven't slept much
that
of
was
the week.
Tuesday. Yes,
Yeah.
and Hal and I.
So, Christy, how did you get word?
How I got the fist.
How did you get word from the office? Because this was a really random turn of events, and at first it was couched a little bit cautiously by them, right? The early word was that there was bond, that this was not just a free release. He wasn't on his own recognizance. It wasn't over, right? So take me through the evolution of, we're going to continue the hearing, he's going to be released, but there is a bond, and then the conditions are now unset, he's just free. Take me through.
Right. All right. Yesterday morning, when we returned for the continuation of the hearing, we went to Judge's Chambers. The U.S. Attorney's Office, myself, Hal Nilsson, my co-counsel, met in Judge's Chambers, and the government told us again, we need time, but there's something that's really, really breaking right now. And so the question was, what do we do? If we had gone back into the hearing, if we had gone into the preliminary hearing, then I would have been allowed to ask the agent about whatever it was that was breaking. They would have had to told me. And the fear was that that might compromise the new information. So we didn't think that was a good outcome. The second option was, initially there was an indication, well, why don't we just agree to a bond and put your guy on electronic monitoring? And we said, well, why don't you just dismiss the charges? If there's that much information out there, you can't keep holding him. So we went back and forth on that. We were digging our heels in the ground, wanting a dismissal. They were wanting an electronic monitoring. So we pretty much got our way. It was just delayed a little bit. So what we did is, there has to be a bond. In order for the United States Marshals to release someone from custody, there has to be a bond. Well, we didn't feel that Mr. Curtis nor his family should have to come up with money, which they don't have, to try to scramble around and make a bond. And, of course, the judge agreed with that. So the bond at that point was unsecured, which just means he was released on his own recognizance. And with the idea being, he would be released, everything would be under seal, and we would go and get him, remove him from the jail, and remove him basically from Lafayette County before anyone knew what was going on. And the purpose of that was, again, the government had some concerns that if these other suspects and people who they now believe were involved, if they got wind of Kevin's release, that they might go into destructive mode of evidence, or things could happen. So we agreed to that because we felt it was in Kevin's best interest. And then, of course, we were told everything would be dismissed before 5 o'clock.